Welcome back to the table, friends. I'm your humble host, GreyDMs. With me, as always, is Owen.
Hi.
So, Owen, what direction, what dark future are you going to take us into tonight?
Don't like the implication is that this is going to be depressing, though. So I figured I'd put something together today that speaks to the point that for some people, and it's happened to me, and I feel like it's happened to you, where something you enjoy starts to become something that you don't do for leisure anymore, but you do it because you feel like you have to.
Okay, so I heard your topic. I must have forgot about it, and this is why I was having the existential nightmare on the drive over, where I was going through this topic in my head. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. It's just like on the back list of my brain were like things to do today. 1, consult why you don't enjoy any of the things you enjoyed anymore.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not going to be talking about ways to solve that problem, but I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why it's occurred.
Yeah.
Okay. So before the market learned how to monetize boredom, games were straightforward things. You paid for one, you owned it. No contracts, no updates, no login screens. You weren't part of a user base or a retention strategy. You were just a customer. You handed over your money, and in return, you got a finished product. The transaction was clean. If a game was bad, it stayed bad. There was no patch waiting to save it. If it was good, it became a kind of artifact. You memorized its glitches, its difficulty spikes, its broken corners. You learned it the way someone learns the streets of their neighborhood. There were no statistics tracking how many times you died or how efficiently you played. The people making those games weren't yet called developers. There were designers, programmers, artists, sometimes just a handful of people in a room trying to see what the hardware could handle. Their work wasn't about retention or brand strategy. It was about curiosity and passion for the project. The result was uneven, but alive. Games weren't built to keep you forever. They were built to impress you for a little while and maybe give you some catharsis. That version of play wasn't pure or innocent, but it was limited in scope. You could step away from it. The arcade machine didn't follow you home. The console didn't log your behavior or remind you to come back. You either played or you didn't, and the choice had no consequences beyond your own attention span. The exploitation was still there, just smaller and more visible. You could see it in the coin slots of the arcade cabinets and the sequels released every year, but it hadn't become systemic yet. There were no focus groups, no psychological retention models, no analytics teams testing the threshold of addiction. Not yet, anyway. The industry hadn't figured out how valuable your time could be. It would, but for a while, the line between playing and paying was still clear enough to see. The internet changed how we played, however, and for a while that felt like progress. Worlds no longer ended when you turned off the console. Characters stayed where you left them, waiting for you to return. The idea of persistence felt revolutionary. But permanence came with a price. You didn't buy games anymore, you joined them. The box on the shelf turned into a password prompt, and the receipt became a subscription. You weren't a customer now, you were a participant, renting your place in something that never really stopped running. I think you and I can relate to a time period in our life where our time in between work and sleep was spent logged into a particular game that we paid for monthly.
Oh, dear God, yes.
Yeah. I mean, millions of people.
Like, it's so much so that, like, that's the thing we keep wanting to go back to.
That is kind of sad when you think about it. I mean, the parts we enjoyed about it, yes.
Like, if you could offer us the ability to take 20 to 30 people in a race, their exposure to that game in our brain so that we could just go back to that, like, how many of us would be no? Like, we'd be like, yeah, okay, let's do it right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, anyway.
At first, it felt like freedom. You could play with anyone, anywhere, at any time. The shared space was intoxicating, but the longer you stayed, the clearer it became that connection was obligation in disguise. Servers expected you to log in. Guilds needed you for raids. Quests reset daily to make sure you did too. Play stopped being spontaneous and started keeping a schedule. The model worked because it didn't look like work. Paying monthly didn't feel like a transaction, it felt like commitment. You weren't buying content, you were maintaining a relationship. The game learned to treat your absence like betrayal. If you didn't show up, someone else would, and they'd be rewarded for it. Developers started calling these systems live services. It sounded modern, but what it really meant was that the game owned your time in small, invisible installments. Missing a week didn't just mean falling behind in progress. It meant losing your place in the world entirely. The subscription didn't end when you canceled it. By then, the habit was already built. You still checked patch notes and updates, telling yourself you might go back. Most people didn't. They just stayed tethered by the memory of the investment, as if hours they'd already spent might be worth something again someday. I think about that a lot. I think about the hours, days, weeks, months, years I invested in characters that I have played in WoW. And they are still sitting there, just in the ether, existing with the progress I made, but I'll never go back to that.
So I have a feeling that a lot of the things that you're going to bring up are going to be like, hey, here's a way to get depressed out of this thing.
Yes.
But if you look at it this other direction, then it's probably acceptable. Or not even acceptable, but really celebrated. And like, yeah, when we find the space to have that conversation, it's kind of building in my head as you're saying. So like, I'll try to get us primed for it.
So as I was saying, it was the start of a pattern that never really stopped. Make the player feel needed, and they'll never leave. Each new release carried the same promise: a community, a constant stream of updates, a reason to stay logged in, a little attention, a little affection, and you'd always come back. The next promise was that players could finally be part of the process. Buy in early, give feedback, shape the future of the game. It sounded democratic. It sounded modern. It kind of sounded like free labor. Crowdfunding blurred the line between customer and investor. People stopped purchasing finished games and started buying intentions. Screenshots and pitch videos replaced products. A few of those dreams worked out. Most didn't. The failures didn't even have to be malicious, just ambitious, underfunded, or quietly abandoned when the money ran out. Early access was supposed to fix that. It turned unfinished games into public prototypes. You paid to test them, sometimes for years, while being told you were supporting development. It was a clever way to remove risk from publishers and hand it to the audience. You weren't a buyer anymore, you were a volunteer with a credit card. Steam made the idea impossible to ignore. Its early access program opened the door for hundreds of half-built projects, each one promising transparency and community involvement. At first, it was exciting, a storefront that let small studios fund themselves without middlemen. But it didn't take long for the incentives to twist. If a project kept selling in its unfinished state, what reason was there to finish it? Completion became a liability. A full release met expectations. No example shows it better than Star Citizen. Announced in 2012, it raised hundreds of millions of dollars in crowdfunding.
Shame.
Sold virtual ships for real money and expanded its scope with every new funding milestone.
It's funny, like Drake's 401k portfolio involves his investment in Star Citizen practically. He's like, this needs to be a reality because I put too much in this digital chip.
That's insane.
Like a lot.
The longer it remained unfinished, the more valuable it became as an idea. The product wasn't a game, it was the perpetual promise of one. So yeah, literally, oh guys, sorry, it's not going to be done this year, but if you keep giving us money, these are the things that we're going to add to it.
Yeah, and then like you said, the whole like, well, hey, now it's like sunken cost, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I mean, we need a little bit more money to get it done, and we've already gotten so far.
I mean, you've already given us some, you might as well give us some more.
Yeah, just put a little bit more in, and we'll give you a fancy little pet to keep going.
Yeah. Smaller studios followed the same playbook in quieter ways. Updates became the new currency. Patch notes were proof of life. Players learned to celebrate progress reports instead of releases. Communities formed around the cycle, screenshots, dev diaries, apologies, and another round of optimism. Somewhere in that loop, the word finished stopped meaning anything. The launch window stopped being an event and became a phase. Deadlines stretched, promises drifted. Studios realized it didn't matter how long something stayed in development as long as the updates kept coming. The product wasn't the game, it was the anticipation. That anticipation became its own economy. Pre-orders, founder packs, paid betas, each one a ticket to a future that might never arrive. Companies learned that hope could be monetized just as easy as nostalgia. The trick was to keep the curtain half open, to keep the audience believing they were part of the show. Some of those projects eventually launched, and a few were even good, but by then, the damage was done. The crowd had learned to forgive unfinished work because they'd been trained to expect it. Bugs and broken promises became proof of authenticity, evidence that the developers were still improving. The early access model didn't just change how games were made, it changed how players thought about quality. The goal stopped being to release something complete. The goal was to release something that could be complete someday. When the audience got tired of waiting for games to be finished, publishers found another way to keep them interested. If players didn't trust studios, maybe they'd trust people playing them. The old gaming press had already started to fade. Review magazines died first, replaced by websites that lived and died by ad revenue. The line between reporting and marketing blurred, then vanished completely. Access became currency. Write something too critical and the invitations stopped coming. Influencers filled the space that journalists left behind. They weren't critics, they were performers. That was the point. Developers didn't need objective reviews when they could buy enthusiasm directly. A smile, a thumbnail, a handful of sponsored streams, that was the new PR cycle. It felt more genuine because it looked like the audience was talking to itself. The arrangement was simple. Publishers sent out codes, talking points, and a check. The creators recorded first impressions, never reviews. The Federal Trade Commission eventually stepped in after a few high-profile cases, like Warner Brothers paying YouTubers to promote Shadow of Mordor without disclosing the sponsorship. But the system didn't stop. It just learned to hide better. Disclaimers got smaller. The money moved through middle agencies instead of publishers. The result was the same: marketing disguised as authenticity. Audiences caught on, but it didn't matter. They didn't really want critics anymore. They wanted reassurance. Influencers gave them that. They built parasocial relationships that made every new release feel like a community event instead of a transaction. You weren't just buying a game, you were buying it into a personality, a lifestyle, a sense of belonging. Studios learned to cultivate these figures the way record labels used to handle pop stars. Some were flown out for exclusive previews, filmed reacting to trailers, or given merchandise weeks before anyone else could buy it. A few became million-dollar brand ambassadors. The lines blurred again. Nobody cared who was paying whom as long as the energy stayed high. It was hard to be angry at it because it didn't feel predatory. It felt like enthusiasm. It felt like the people who loved games were finally getting rewarded for it. But beneath that excitement was the same quiet logic that had always driven the industry. Keep the player consuming, keep this conversation positive, and keep the cameras rolling. Traditional journalism had operated on criticism. Influencer culture ran on access. One asked question, the other asked for promo codes. Somewhere in that exchange, honesty stopped being valuable. By the end of the decade, trust wasn't earned, it was sold by the hour. The face on the thumbnail changed every few years, but the smile stayed the same. By the middle of the 2010s, playing games for a living had stopped being a fantasy. It was an industry. Esports organizations replaced hobbyist clans, and publishers stopped pretending to be surprised. Competition was good for business. Even every tournament was marketing. Every professional player became a moving billboard. The dream sold itself. Anyone could make it. All you needed was time, skill, and a willingness to burn out early. Millions chased the idea through League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Global Offensive, Overwatch. The best trained 10 or 12 hours a day under contracts written by people who treated them as disposable assets. Most careers ended before the player turned 25. The human body wasn't designed for that type of repetition, but there was always someone younger waiting to take their place. On stage, it looked glamorous. Big lights, sponsors, crowds roaring in arenas that used to host rock concerts. Off stage, it was another story. Prize pools sounded impressive, but most of the money flowed to organizers and sponsors. When a team folded, salaries went unpaid, operational costs swallowed winnings that had already been promised. For many, it was a shift work with a headset. Scandals arrived as soon as the money did. In 2010, StarCraft 2 pros in South Korea were charged with fixing matches for bribes. Later investigations touched Counter-Strike, Dota 2, and betting sites that operated on the edge of legality. Players were banned, leagues rebranded, and everyone moved on. None of it changed the structure that made corruption profitable in the first place. Publishers didn't need purity, they needed viewership. Riot Games turned League of Legends into a permanent broadcast schedule complete with regional leagues and merchandising. The game became a media platform as much as a competition. Blizzard tried to copy the model with Overwatch League, selling city franchises and promising a future of television glory. It collapsed under its own weight, leaving unpaid staff and a long list of restructuring announcements. Streaming blurred the last remaining line between sports and spectacle. Players had to be entertained as well as skilled. Contracts included quotas for hours broadcast and brand integrations. What started as competition turned into performance, and performance turned into content. Every match, every scrimmage, every moment online became inventory. The system called itself meritocratic, but the numbers never added up. For every millionaire champion, thousands grinded through qualifiers that paid nothing. Success stories justified the grind. Failure was personal. It was the perfect loop, a dream that marketed itself through the people it consumed. By the time professional gamer became an accepted job title, the novelty had already worn off. The players were replaceable. The games came and went. The real winners were the publishers and platforms that learned how to turn someone else's talent into steady advertising revenue. When games stopped being products, they had to become something else. Companies settled on permanence. If players could be convinced to keep playing indefinitely, there would never be a bad quarter again. Design philosophy shifted from entertainment to retention. Difficulty curves flattened. Progress was replaced by progress bars. Every mechanic had to feed another. The point wasn't to challenge the player anymore, but to keep them moving. The industry called it engagement. In practice, it was dependency. Behavioral psychology moved into the design process. Variable reward schedules, limited time offers, artificial scarcity, ideas that formalized in the 1930s by B.F. Skinner's experiments with operant conditioning, became core tools of modern development. Skinner discovered that subjects responded most strongly to unpredictable rewards. The next press of the lever might produce a treat, or it might not. Casinos built their entire business model on that insight. Games followed the same map. Academic work on dopamine and compulsion filled in the rest. Studies in the 1990s on slot machine design showed that small, random payouts created measurable surges in anticipation chemistry. Later research on intermittent reinforcement and reward prediction error described how the brain releases dopamine not when a reward is delivered, but when it is expected. Designers didn't need to understand neurology in detail, they just needed to know that uncertainty kept people clicking. Mobile developers turned those findings into software. Energy meters, login bonuses, and gotcha rolls ensured every session ended just before satisfaction. Console and PC studios copied the formula once they saw the numbers. Loot boxes blurred into battle passes. Every update promised new cosmetics, new challenges, and new seasons and reasons to check in. The product was no longer the game itself, but the routine that surrounded it. The term games as a service appeared, and it was treated like progress. It meant a constant cycle of updates, seasons, and limited events. In theory, it kept games alive. In reality, it turned play into maintenance. Players logged in out of habit, afraid to fall behind or lose rewards that would never return. Missing a week felt like losing ground at work. The success of the model was measurable. Engagement time went up. Revenue followed. Publishers hired retention specialists and built internal psychology teams. Some studios even consulted with addiction researchers and economists to optimize what they called player lifecycle management. Fun wasn't the goal, consistency was. Enjoyment became a metric, and metrics became policy. The results were predictable. Frustration kept people playing longer than joy ever did. Every irritation was data. Every hesitation was logged and tuned. Players called it grind. Executives called it stability. It was the same principle that kept social media feeds scrolling and stock tickers blinking. Attention was capital and exhaustion was proof of investment. The trick worked because it was gradual. No one noticed it was happening. The grind was wrapped in bright colors and daily rewards. Every change looked like generosity, more content, more updates, more reasons to play. This hit me in Mists of Pandaria. Because, and this is original Mists of Pandaria, not classic or anything like that, where I reached a point where I was literally only logging into the game to get my dailies done on 3 characters, and then I'd log out.
I was doing that World with Wrath.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Like, I had an aversion to dailies.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why we had a different experience there was because, like, you were raiding.
Yes. So I was talking to people. You were silent.
Yes. So, like, there was the payoff. Like, you understood the payoff to doing that.
Yeah.
And, like, because I, like, couldn't see the payoff to doing it, the concept of being adverse to it hit a lot quicker.
Yeah. When I got to Mists of Pandaria and I was doing that, I was like, I'm doing this again. I did this the last 2 expansions. Why am I doing this again?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm zeroing in on some thoughts, and I'm just slowly trying to figure out the orientation of the knife.
So, the modern industry learned that love could be exploited just as easily as habit. The same way a player's attention could be stretched into a subscription, a creator's enthusiasm could be turned into labor. The phrase, "do what you love," became the most efficient management tool ever invented. Developers were the first to learn that lesson. Studios began to run on overtime disguised as dedication. Working through nights and weekends was proof of commitment, not a sign of failure. Management didn't need to ask for it directly. Culture handled that on its own. Games were built on passion, and passion made people predictable. By the time the public heard the word crunch, it was already decades old. Reports from inside major studios revealed what had been started for years. In 2018, Rockstar Games boasted of staff working 100-hour weeks during the final stretch of Red Dead Redemption 2. The phrase was meant to signal determination. It became evidence of abuse. CD Projekt Red promised not to repeat those mistakes and then did exactly that during Cyberpunk 2077's delayed release, mandating 6-day work weeks while management apologized in advance. At Naughty Dog, staff turnover on The Last of Us Part 2 reached crisis levels as developers described a culture where exhaustion was seen as excellence. Even when studios collapsed, the rhetoric stayed the same. When Telltale Games shut down overnight in 2018, laying off more than 200 employees without severance, executives praised the team's incredible passion in the same breath it announced its end. Passion had become both the justification for abuse and the apology afterwards. Independent developers weren't immune. Crowdfunding had made them small businesses overnight, but the expectation of constant transparency turned every delay into a scandal. Updates had to be posted, apologies written, milestones reached. When No Man's Sky launched in 2016, without many of its promised features, the same community that had once celebrated the developers' openness turned on them completely. It took years of free updates and relentless post-mortem work before public perception recovered.
With good reason for that one.
Yeah. For smaller studios, that kind of recovery wasn't possible. Each patch was a reminder that independence had turned into a full-time job without benefits. The same logic moved outward to the rest of the hobby. Streamers, modders, artists, and community managers all found themselves caught between play at work. Platforms encouraged it. Twitch's partner and affiliate programs rewarded consistency instead of quality. Streamers competed in marathon broadcasts to maintain their visibility and income, fighting burnout under metrics disguised as opportunity. YouTube's algorithmic changes and the so-called apocalypse of 2017 demonetized thousands of creators overnight. Entire channels vanished not because of scandal or failure, but because the platform's automated systems redefined what counted as profitable. Microsoft's Mixer collapsed in 2020 after luring major streamers into exclusive contracts, dissolving their agreements overnight. It was the same story told over and over. New platform, new rules, same outcome. Each promised creative freedom, and each found a way to make that freedom conditional. For a few, it worked. There were real success stories, names that became brands, brands that became companies. But for every creator who built a sustainable career, thousands burned out quietly. Algorithms changed, audiences moved on, sponsors cut ties. Passion didn't protect anyone from exhaustion, it only made them feel guilty for noticing it. Inside studios, discontent began to surface. In 2018, the grassroots movement Game Workers Unite formed to push for collective bargaining in an industry that had long rejected the word union. The following years brought the first organized strikes and walkouts. QA teams at Keyword Studios and Raven Software voted to unionize. Workers at Activision Blizzard walked out in 2021 after widespread reports of harassment and toxic leadership. They held signs that read ABK Workers for Accountability. For the first time, the word solidarity appeared in gaming press releases. Publishers understood the economics of guilt and goodwill. When workers believed in the product, they were easier to underpay. When players believed they were part of a community, they were easier to keep engaged. The result was a culture where every level of participation from developer to fan could be measured, optimized, and sold. The same machine that tracked engagement in the player base began to track morale inside the studio. The language stayed positive. Terms like community management, creator outreach, and brand partnership made exploitation sound collaborative. The tone of every corporate statement was the same: friendly, informal, endlessly grateful. It was the vocabulary of appreciation used to describe a system built on exhaustion. Passion still made the work possible, it just stopped being the point. The industry no longer needed creativity, it needed consistency. As long as someone was willing to stay logged in, to stream another hour, to crunch another week, the system would hum along. The dream of making games and the dream of playing them had merged into the same job, and nobody was getting paid enough for it. Somewhere along the way, playing stopped feeling like a break. People started talking about their backlog, the way accountants talk about audits. Hours logged became proof of discipline. Fun turned into a list that needed to be completed. Games had taught us to think in terms of optimization, finish the dailies, max out the pass, hit the next rank before the season ends. The same language that ruled office productivity software now ruled leisure. Play began to sound like project management, complete with charts and milestones. Every system built to make games last longer ended up making them harder to finish. Updates replaced endings, expansions replaced closure. Every single-player title, or even single-player titles, arrive half-complete, designed to evolve through patches and live content. You didn't finish a game anymore, you just stopped updating it. Players learned to ration enthusiasm. Hype cycles trained people to anticipate disappointment, to expect bugs and broken launches, to wait for the real version that after the first major patch. Every title was provisional, every promise deferred, marketing called it engagement, it felt like fatigue. The pressure to stay current only grew. Social spaces built around games, Discords, subreddits, group chats, moved faster than anyone could keep up. Missing a week of updates could mean being left out of the conversation entirely. Even if you didn't care about leaderboards, you cared about not being forgotten. That was the real retention mechanic. The burnout that hit developers began to reach the audience. Player described it the same way workers describe their jobs: tired, detached, going through the motions. Games became comfort food for people who no longer enjoyed eating. Critics started calling it content fatigue, but it was simpler than that. It was exhaustion dressed as entertainment. Some studios tried to fight the trend by releasing smaller, self-contained experiences, but they were treated like novelties instead of norms. A game you could finish in 10 hours felt incomplete, even when it wasn't. Completion itself had stopped being the goal. The goal was maintenance. Outside the screen, the same logic spread everywhere else. Fitness apps, education platforms, even workplaces borrowed game mechanics to track engagement and reward consistency. The feedback loop that started in arcades was now baked into productivity culture. The player had become the template for the worker, and the worker was expected to keep playing forever. It's easy to forget that this wasn't always normal. Games used to have endings. They used to leave space for absence. You could stop playing without feeling like you were losing something. That's gone now. The metrics never stop counting, and silence feels like failure. There's a reason people keep reinstalling the same titles they swore they were finished with. It isn't nostalgia, it's habit pretending to be comfortable. Somewhere along the line, leisure learned to imitate labor. But on the plus side, there are a lot of single-player games coming out recently that are getting a lot of hype. The new Hollow Knight, people are loving the hell out of it.
Is Hollow Knight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silksong?
Yeah.
Every player reaches a point where they start to wonder what they're doing. The systems keep running, the updates keep downloading, but the excitement doesn't come back. It's a quiet kind of realization. The moment you stop chasing new releases and start opening the same old folders to see what's left inside. The industry calls this churn. It treats it as a data point, a sign when someone might need another sale, another reason to return. But it isn't churn, it's fatigue. People keep reinstalling the same games because they miss the version of themselves that used to have fun playing them. It's strange how quickly the culture around gaming learned to confuse effort with enjoyment. Players are told to stay busy, to keep collecting, to treat free time like a skill tree that needs to be filled out. The companies that designed those systems have moved on to new products, but the mindset's stuck. Even when people walk away, they still measure relaxation in progress bars. What's left after all this isn't a crisis, it's something smaller and more personal. It's the recognition that fun doesn't need to be productive, that joy doesn't need a goal. Most people won't quit games entirely, but they play differently once they notice what's been taken from them. They look for things that end. They seek boundaries again. They want to finish something and walk away. Sometimes that means dusting off an old console, booting up a single-player game that never asked for a patch, and remembering what it was like when play was just play. No notifications, no updates, no friends list watching in the corner, just a finite space with a beginning and an end. It doesn't fix anything. The industry will keep iterating, optimizing, and finding ways to turn attention into revenue. But it helps to remember that those systems still need consent. They only work if people keep logging in.
Once again, Owen, you have delivered upon me many sleepless nights and existential threat. That is really funny.
Yeah.
So I've gotten into this habit, and this is something I do routinely, where, I don't know if maybe you've encountered this, I know we have different habits in this case. When I want to watch something on my computer, I get fidgety. So I need something to interact with
while you're watching it on your computer.
I can't do what you do, like play a game fully.
Yeah.
So I have to find games that I can play while I'm zoning out or listening to something.
That's one of the reasons why I play RimWorld so much.
Yeah, I can get that. Like anything that you can kind of manage or
pause.
So one of the things I do is I play Minecraft a lot just because it's it's like almost meditative.
I've been thinking about getting back into Minecraft for a long time.
Well, let this, not discourage you. So over the past couple of years, I have gotten into this habit of doing this because the other one I do a lot of times during the holidays is Rust.
Yeah.
And I will specifically go on a low population RP server and I'll just go build a place.
Yeah.
Stock stuff, and then you hit a point where you're like, I have nothing else to do, and I'll log off. But with Minecraft, I always end up with the same thing, regardless of what world it is or whatever. I always get this idea. I love big structures.
Yeah.
I want to build a big structure. Wow. So I pick something out. It usually ends up being just some tower, and I start work on it by, spending the first couple hours, which are the only real interesting hours, setting up my routine, and then creating a routine of digging downward and getting whatever, and then just having this thing set up where I could auto log in, play, do the thing, continue it, almost at repeat. And hours and hours and hours will go by, and then that save will get deleted and I'll do the same thing again. And you're saying this, and I'm just thinking myself spending 3 hours today watching these these documentaries on YouTube and stuff like that, but doing that. And I'm just like, that wasn't fun. That was labor. Like, that wasn't achieving. like that wasn't even like back when like we saw Minecraft through a comic from Penny Arcade and we're like, what is this thing? You know,
punch trees.
It was like, oh, put a block here and like I could put a block. What can I not do? You know, and like that whole just rampant, exuberant discovery phase of just building stuff and then thinking about it and thinking like, okay, I clock in for my shift. Put on the TV and
I start putting stuff on top of it.
So. I dig down for 4 more chunks. You know, it's oh my god. Yeah, wow.
But I do have to say, like, I get that. I do the same thing. And it sucks when you realize like, oh, like 5 hours just went by and I just did something that I won't care about in an hour or two. But at the same time, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but and I'm hoping tomorrow we'll have time. Everybody will have time if you and Drake want to play Abiotic tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
The last couple weeks, when I got home, I was out of it. When we play that game, you don't stand still. Like literally I'll be like, okay, we have to, get these things. We have to work on something. And it's just like, oh, Grey just jumped into another portal, or, oh my God, what's that? What are you doing? Something gigantic and scary just showed up. Where are you? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like Drake will be like, I need to make food. And I'm just like, I need to work on equipment and stuff. And you're just like, I just need to explore and disappear.
Well, because exactly. It's like that exactly that point is like, there's a part of you, like I'm assuming here, but if I understand correctly, there's a part of you that like gets the dopamine hit by like figuring out the thing to get the next thing I just got a cool thing now.
Which is what annoys me with Drake, because there's been several times where we've been banging our head against the wall on how to do something, and he'll just walk up and be like, well, what about blah? And we'll say, son of a bitch.
Yeah. And like for me, that same dopamine hit is the like, this is the first time I'm seeing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm always peeking around the corner, running into the room, having the experience, because that is the dopamine hit. And And when you're like, oh, well, we got to go back and do this thing, I'm like, yeah, all right.
Oh, we got to go back. It's just like, well, you just ran by all this stuff and you just triggered all these things, but you're supposed to pay attention to this and do this first before you did all of that. It's like, I don't know why I can't kill these guys. It's because you didn't do the thing you were supposed to do before you ran into those guys. Like the one portal where it was just like, hey, you better wear gear that protects you from heat.
I could race to the end. I did. It's like, wah, made it out. Made my own fun. Fuck you, game. It's like, well, just go back and make the thermal thing.
Well, the other thing, we had to go back because we had to collect all the shit in the zone.
I made it there the first time. Part of growing up, especially is like learning those issues that you have and like learning that like, I'm not going to fully enjoy something if I don't like fix this, not fix behavior, but like at least set myself up knowing that behavior exists. And in something like, like WoW, or like when we played Arcade, like, especially like by the time we played Arcade, I kind of knew that was happening. And so like, if we log into something where more like, I don't want to say being serious about it, or more like intentional, then I'm usually like, all right, like turn to Owen, like, Owen, what's the plan here? What's the order of operations? Because I know I'm going to go squirrel, but like at least I need to be working on something in the meantime. But with Abiotic, it's just like, we're sitting there and we're like, okay, cool. We hit the brick wall, and the brick wall is like, you need to figure out how to unlock this door. And I'm like, cool, squirrel. I just start running off. I'm like, what can I find? Then we hit those things where you're like, okay, anybody be on the lookout for solder? I'm like, got a bunch of those. Don't care about it anymore. Where do you mean? What do you mean you got a bunch? Where
did you get them from? Don't remember. They're in the crate.
Some guy over here somewhere. Did you see this new thing that killed me?
It's like, it's one of the reasons I'm so glad you don't have one of the lock picks.
Oh, door's open. Did you ever tell us you opened that door? Nope. Just opened all the doors.
It's like me and Drake are the only two that have the keypad to unlock doors. And that's probably for the best.
Every time I encounter one of the locked ones, I just go through this like thing in my head of like, I should probably, maybe this works out. Maybe that's the gate.
That is the gate, because that's what allows me and Drake to catch up to you so we can look around and go, what is this place? Why is it important?
Yeah, because I totally am like the dead body you find at the end of the dungeon. Who's just like, he just ran ahead of everybody and found his.
There's just like a note, like looking. Wow, why do I keep thinking Dark Souls? Like a note that just says, "Was the first one here? Still has no idea why he came." You know.
Yes, the weird universe of Dark Souls that would be just my name everywhere, but first. Ooh, shiny, pretty. Oh my god. Dying. It was all worth it.
So you beat the game. Did you like the ending? I don't know. I didn't watch. Skip the cutscene.
So the funny thing is when I got into RPGs in high school, I played with this other guy who was also playing the games I was playing. And then when we moved up here, you know, like I played largely with you because Max didn't play the RPG stuff that we played that much. So there's that thing where like happened a couple times where something would come out, we both get it and start playing, and I'd always be like, I got to race to the end.
Yeah, I know. It would drive me nuts because I'm just like, I'm really starting to get into this. You'd be like, oh, I beat it yesterday. I'm like, what?
It's the same thing when I'm reading a book. Like it's
yes, I know.
It's like it's that.
Here, you should read this book. I hated this book. I read it in one afternoon.
Burned through it so quickly. Well, because it's like I find myself getting to the point where I'm like, I want to flip the pages and go forward, and like in chunks. And I'm like, oh, because like that's the dopamine hit for me, is like the discovery of what's happening. And it kind of goes back into, I think that's one of the things that we're saying the whole time. One of the things I was thinking about the whole time this was happening, I love that this is the dead zone that no one ever listens to. We passed the 13-minute mark, so no one will ever hear this. Was the new Final Fantasy VII games.
Yeah.
And like, the first one came out, and beautiful, I played it, just a whole bunch. I was like, oh, this is great, and this is why they're doing it, and blah, blah, blah. Second one
remakes,
remakes. Yeah. Second one came out, and like, I have some issues with some of the things they did, but overall, I think they did a fantastic job of rebuilding that game for the people who are growing up now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's catered to them, not to us.
Yeah.
And one of the problems I have playing it is it basically, you take that game with that story and you start doing the whole, like, you've entered a new area. Now start grinding out all the subquests here. I'm like, that's not the story.
Yeah.
Like, the story plot point is like, oh, I've crossed the continent. I need to get to Cosmo Canyon, right? Mm-hmm. That's what I need to do. So we're all just trying to figure out how to get to Cosmo Canyon. Oh my gosh, here's the little subplot with like going over to the Golden Saucer. And instead it's like, you've unlocked the Golden Saucer area. Spend 20 hours here. And I'm just like, no, like, I don't want to. Like, I want to get to the next, like, I want to feel moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I completely understand pulling back and like building some time in these places and stuff like that. But like, in the games that they took that from were games where like you had to do something to unlock a new area.
Yeah.
And the plot inherently was built around the concept of this new area is available to you and now you can go explore it. It wasn't go get to Mordor, you know, like, and then unlock and do all the side quests on everything there. And so like, I was like, why can't I, like, this is a game that was, you know, done as a passion project. Well, not really anymore, but it was done originally as a passion project for people who love the old game, and I love the old game. Why do I want to go play the old game and not this? And it got me thinking into like, I think there's two pieces of this exploration. One is just what happens when you get old as a gamer. And two is what is the industry doing that's different. And like, one of the big areas I can feel like, which is, you know, what part of that we're talking about is like when you start saying there's a lot of single player games coming out. That's like that's the sign that like we're talking about like old people stuff, because there is stuff for new people to play and to get involved with. But like it's this concept where all the AAA companies have just like shitified everything they have.
Look at all I can't play first person shooters anymore. Like they are epilepsy inducing,
sprint, slide, peek shoot, double tap this way.
The stories have disappeared. The reasons I played a lot of first person shooters, I was just like, this is an interesting story. I want to find out the story, why I'm going to this place. Now it's just like, no, it's online play, get skins. That's it.
Get skins. Just the fact that Fortnite, like someone posted something like, do you remember Fortnite was originally a zombie shooter? They're like, yeah. It is this thing of like, if you take a kid nowadays and you set them and you're like, you're going to play the old game Thief, they're going to like go, like they'll shoot themselves. Like they'll be like, this game is the slowest, most painfully slow thing imaginable. And you're like, yeah, because you got to spend time and like plan your move and shoot the arrow and anyway, but like I said, there's that thing of like, is that me being old, or is that where I think this thing has changed and the industry is headed in a different direction?
I do think the industry is heading in a different direction. And as I stated in my little speech there, I think they've learned that hitting you with bursts of dopamine and then letting you starve for a while keeps you coming back. Where older games, it was a slow build. You're going through, you're learning what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. New games are just like experience, loud noises, flashes, blah, 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 sprint. Oh, you suck, get better new, blah, blah, blah. That's what a lot of new games have become. And that's unfortunately the group of people who are throwing the most money at places like this. That's what they've come to expect.
Like, I really feel like we've lost the ability to buy experiences.
Yeah.
Because I think that feels to me that was the difference. Like, because there's all the little parts of it, and a lot of them are just like, boomers complaining. You can say whatever negative about us, but like you would see a very small ad for something.
Mm-hmm.
And you would like save your money up, buy the thing, and bring it home super excited. That thing would dominate like your weekend, possibly your week. It would dominate your interactions with your friends for a few weeks as you told them how awesome this thing was, and they scheduled sleepovers and whatever. Fast forward, we're at work and we're telling each other, oh my gosh, this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I start going back and I start thinking about those things. And like, why do I want to race ahead in JRPGs? Because I'm enjoying the experience of like going, oh shit, here's the next cutscene. Oh crap, look at this. Oh my God, this thing, right? Like Metal Gear Solid, the whole like Psycho Mantis fight,
mm-hmm.
and like, having to switch.
You can't shoot him.
Yeah, like all that stuff. And yeah, it was in a day when there wasn't the internet and stuff like that. But like, that experience, you could just, if you're interested in if there was a new Metal Gear Solid game.
What was the remake they just did?
Again, really?
For Snake Eater?
Oh yeah, they just did a Snake Eater remake because Max was talking about you had to go get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think you need to go get it. But anyway, if you want that and you're like, there's always one click away is watching someone else do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in that, whatever it being a different environment that people are growing up in now, sure, I'll take that. But at the same time, that strips away how different and how empowering it was to have your own personal experience. And I think it lends to a culture of people who are growing up in where experiences are shared like this so frequently. Those experiences don't matter, and they don't change who you are. Like, they don't have the impact because they become like the curriculum for gamers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, well, every gamer has to know about Ares dying now. But like, well, no, that wasn't true before. It was like a lot of people knew about it because they went through it.
Right.
Or they heard their buddy go through it. And you had like the first person people who are like, oh, no, I feel it. And the other people are like, yeah, I know she died. And I'm like, oh, you didn't play the game. Like, I got it. We're different. But like, everybody can just go watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know, like, so there's this like difference of that thing is no longer being intertwined into your DNA. And it's happening everywhere. Like, it's funny because more apt to this podcast is it's happening in TTRPGs.
Yeah.
Critical Role, like, and not even to the point where like we can just say Critical Role, but we're talking about there is so many live plays out there that you can find one that hits your sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
You can find one that is away from this Hollywood woke culture and instead fits your background aesthetic. Like, you could literally find anything because you could be like, I only want to hear authentic British people play aliens from the Telltale.
I want to hear authentic British people playing Australians in South America.
But like, whatever it is, you can now, get that. And because of that, you kind of end up with a little bit of like this kind of Drake thing where like you come to the table with preconceptions.
Yeah.
You come to the table with experiences. Like, how many people had their first explanation of what the deck of many things was at a D&D table?
Right.
Versus how many people watched a TikTok?
Right.
And yeah, sure, we can say like, oh, well, we're just boomer, we're just old and this, but like, doesn't that mean something?
Yeah.
Because the people who had it at the table had a sense of community when they encountered another person, because each one of these things that made up your identity had a story attached to it. And you were always kind of like, ooh, I like you, like we're going to be friends, so I want to know your version of that story.
Right.
Mine was this, what is yours? And if they're both like, did you see the video? I watched the video. Like, then it's not really a story. It's not something you went through. And so I feel like there's this whole thing with, like, they talk about it a lot with learning and information, how like they say if you took a person from like 100 or 150 years ago and you tried to put them in our society, they basically would just have a meltdown.
Just because, a seizure on the spot.
Yeah. Like, because they can't process as much abstract information that we have to on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And we're already losing the fight because the next generation is being primed to do it more in more impressive ways than we are, right? Like, they're going to grow up in a world where basically everybody is constantly on, like, talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like, the whole concept that, like, half of the team at work was all in contact with each other over, like, both the people at work and their friends groups at the same time, like, kind of blew. I was like, whoa, there's no anyway, but that's a sidetrack. But like, yeah, so there's like that whole thing. I gotta rewind myself.
Get back to the point.
But like, I feel like maybe that's also happening with experience, where because so much money was available in these streams where people marketed like watchable quote unquote experiences to people, and they clearly it was so profitable that they put everything into it. And you now have like multi tens of millions of dollars going into a single YouTube video because they know that YouTube video will drag in as much money as, a basic movie. Because of that, all those experiences have become cheap and they don't add up to like fundamental core concepts of who you are. And I feel like that is something that like we're losing heavily. And I'm like, I don't know where the new generation could get it. Like when they walk into a classroom and all those kids are either plugged in and are experiencing the latest batch of what a kid their age should be experiencing, or they're just behind and they're going to get laughed at, and like, that's all talk. How do you have an authentic experience? Like, how did they have a bullying experience or something that like really changes the way they view the world instead of just seeing it a million times on videos first? Like, it feels weird. It feels like people are just,
they're by becoming more connected to each other, they've been more disconnected from everything around them because they're experiencing everything through someone else. It's like, hey, do you know how to drive a car? Well, no, but I've watched a lot of videos of people driving cars.
Yeah, and that gap, like what happens when you then get thrown in a car? You know, where do those gaps show up? And I think like there's all these things that we're seeing as evidence of this, of like people forming like romantic relationships with AI. And like all this other stuff that...
Well, it's like in the parasocial relationships with streamers where this person's my friend. It's like, they don't even know who you are, buddy.
Or love interest or whatever, you know? And yeah, I really feel like maybe, and like I said, and hey, if any of you are still listening and you think that, no, this is just two old people complaining about being old, please tell me. But like, it really feels like we are watching the death of authenticity.
This is our version of people are reading too many books and they're not getting real experiences in life.
It could be, and I hope it is.
My hope is that this is the straw that breaks the camel's back and humanity is dead in 100 years.
Yeah, well, your hope is my fear. My hope is your fear.
I think we're all better off that way.
Yeah, maybe. Reset to monkey.
Yeah, we'll let the next version of man take over.
They'll be like, what was this internet thing? Bad. All right.
We'll be the forerunners. We found their ancient technology buried.
We've dug one of them up, frozen, thawed them out, used our technologies. What have you say? Did you guys see our podcast? I got a podcast for you guys.
No, more than likely they'll 6'7".
All right, boomer. All right, we'll see you guys later.